Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. This is Tom O'Connor from New Orleans, Louisiana, where we are counting down 28 days to Jazz Fest, which is really the most important thing going on in New Orleans these days. Um, and I'm really happy to be here today with Don Swanson, my old friend and colleague. And I won't say how old because I don't know how it came up, but in looking up your bio, I saw that you started Five Star Legal, your company, in 1992, right? And I didn't care to go back any further than that, other than to say you and I think probably both met back in the dawn of the summation era, right? Don't we have our roots in summation and
It's true.
yikes.
Yeah, that is where I first met you, Tom. And
Okay.
I remember how very kind you were to me when I was just starting out my company and
Uh,
meeting you in San Francisco. And yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it brought back some great memories about those days in San Francisco. And as Summation moved from two or three different offices as they kind of
Yeah,
bounced around and grew um, over the years. So that was interesting. But today we're going to talk about two things really briefly. I'm going to ask you about AI. And then more in depth, I want to ask you about your new product, eDig 36. Um, and so
365 actually.
eDig 365. Well, that's
365.
good. Good
It's
thing.
a Tom, it's a play on eDig is a play on eDiscovery and information governance in
Ah,
Microsoft 365.
there we
eDiscovery and
go.
information governance in 365. So that's where eDig 365's origin story is.
So what happens if Microsoft changes Microsoft 365 to like Microsoft 2001 or something, right?
Well, what's there's still 365 is still going to be a number that
Yeah,
most people can relate to.
right. So first, I just briefly wanted to get your thoughts on. You had a couple of really interesting thoughts as we were chatting ahead of time here about AI.
Yeah.
Um, last week was Legal Week in New York City, and the ABA Tech Show is going on right now as we speak. Um, and all I'm seeing is a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors and huff and fluff about AI without a lot of in-depth discussion. But you made a really interesting point. Well, you made two interesting points, I thought. The first was, which certainly is true, that this is an exciting time, and it's in that it's a time of change. All this AI stuff has only come up. I mean, really, what was OpenAI, ChatGPT, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago? I mean, this is a monumental change in an incredibly short period of time. I used to talk when I was teaching paralegals up in Seattle. We were in a classroom. I had blackboards all around. I'd start at one end and I'd write 1665 at one blackboard, and then I'd start drawing this big line, and I'd say, look, you got to go back. I'd have to go around the room like three times to talk about all human history getting to 1665, and that's when Rene Descartes started blowing out mathematics into what we're using now. And it doesn't take much. Okay, 1665 to um, computers, early computers in the late 30s and early 40s, big iron, and then the modern computer era and the atomic era by the late 40s with the atomic era, and then into modern computers by the late 50s, and then we're doing space travel and transistor radio. I can remember when the first transistor radio came out, but the point was it was a super compression. Humans have been on the planet about 100,000 years, um, and in one iteration or another, and then all of a sudden 1600s we get you know Descartes and modern math, and then not long after that, like 100 years later, you get Benjamin Franklin flying a kite with electricity, and it all just gets super compressed. And now we're talking everything we've done in AI within the last 2.5 years. It's really troubling to people. It's hard to keep up for anybody. Um,
Yeah.
but you made a great comment in addition to that it's exciting because we're in this truly, maybe bigger than the Industrial Revolution, or at least on the same footing as the Industrial Revolution, um, and in what it's doing to human society. Um, but you made a great comment about programmers and how AI is taking over the business of programming. Why don't you I won't put words in your mouth because you're sitting right here. Why don't you tell me what your thoughts were on that, because it was great.
Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me on this. So you were talking about the trade shows. This week we were at the RSA show, which is the big security show in
That's
San
right.
Francisco.
That's right. Yeah.
And this this notion of programming, to get specific about that, is that I really think it's the tipping point or crossing the chasm, or however you want to think about it, um, may have happened last month in February of 2026, where these models have gotten so good that the programmers that I listen to online and that I know personally have told me that their job has changed from writing code to orchestrating a series of prompts and having machines write code for them that they review and analyze, and they may have 5 or more different projects going on, and they are in the conductor of this work, and through their experience and knowledge, they're able to review what's been done, but the volume of work they're able to do is incredible. I was talking to somebody today, Chief Information Security Officer, who is wondering about all the programmers that they have on their staff. And, are they really needed? And I think so. The big takeaway, I think, for me is right now, like I think in the last month or so, the capabilities of writing code by these machines has reached that next level where they're can be as good as the best programmer. And the best programmers acknowledge that, and they've changed their job from writing code to analyzing code written by the machines. And that's a big deal. And I just kind of wonder what the future holds. We'll see. I mean, programming is a very specialized domain, but we'll see what the future holds. I would imagine that it could impact law and medicine too.
Well, yeah, like everything else in the computer world, right? If we were just at the tipping point in February, it's only going to get better, faster, more creative as we go forward.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Be interesting to see how that plays out. And certainly, what we're seeing in legal is a lot of, I don't know, binding together. We're seeing crossover from IG to the actual working of the law firm and moving data around. eDiscovery is kind of on one end of that process, as litigation has always been. And that, yeah, you see AI taking over much more of all of those tasks, and which is probably good for those of us who didn't go to law school because we were good in math. So to that extent, then, so tell me about eDig 365. What do you got going on here? Because I think it kind of follows right from that discussion.
Yeah. Well, I've heard organizations talk about that they figured out eDiscovery in 2008. And they're proud to say that they've kind of got it figured out. And I always find that statement very curious, because it wasn't until 2013 that Microsoft released what's now Microsoft 365, Office 365. And when data moved to the cloud, it also, at least in my opinion, just changed the nature of the way we preserve and collect information. And also, somewhat amazingly, between 2008 and 2013, like today, I don't know, 80–90% of organizations, large corporations in particular, and government at the state, local, and federal level are running Microsoft 365. Like it's ubiquitous. And of course there is Google Workspace, but really Microsoft has kind of won the enterprise play, frankly. And so there's all this data, and it ends up, you mentioned information governance, that eDiscovery is kind of the backbone of information governance because Microsoft eDiscovery has extremely powerful permissions that give the ability to a select few users in the organization, whoever gets to sign those, the ability to search any mailbox, any OneDrive, any SharePoint site, any team site for anything. And this creates risk. And so how does an organization track activity without needing to go to PowerShell or the audit logs and kind of drowning in audit logs?
Well, it's really, not to interrupt. Well, I am, so sorry. But I did I did an EDRM webinar the other day with James Province from Microsoft,
Right.
and while he's talking about these different things, and
Yeah.
oh, you can go here and you can click there. Those are the comments we're getting from the attendees. Is I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't know there were that many different places. Oh my God. Or I don't have anybody in my organization that knows where all that stuff is.
Right.
How do we get a handle on this? There's so much data in so many different places,
Right.
and some people complaining that Microsoft kind of shifts where stuff gets stored sometimes, and they're not always up to date on that. Although that means they just aren't reading their notices from Microsoft emails, but because I'm sure Microsoft is telling them, but they're trying to push those to the side. But yeah, you're exactly right. There's all these different internal sources of information.
Yes. And I watched that interview that you did with James, and I happened to just see him. I guess it was 2 days ago in San Francisco. And
Yeah, he told me he was going to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to see him. Well, so I think there's a couple things going on here. One is because the paradigm is different than it was in an on-premise world. The cloud world is different, and you kind of need to understand how to search, not only where to search in these new data locations that are new, but also how to search and understanding the search syntax, which is not Lucene or DT search. It's its own KeyQL, keyword query language syntax, unique to Microsoft 365. So you have to kind of understand that.
Huh.
Even if you want to do a basic search like a date range search, you have to understand the syntax to use. And a lot of times there's, just following up on this a little bit, you have an attorney who may be outside counsel, maybe in-house counsel, that'll make a request to IT that may be vague and unclear. And then you have an IT person who's been tasked with a rush request to make a collection. They have to interpret this request and execute the request. And the request may be to put a legal hold on, like, for example, put Joe Smith on hold. And then they'll say, and search Joe Smith for X, Y, and Z. Well, understanding what that means to search Joe Smith, do you want their mailbox? Do you want their OneDrive? Do you want their teams that they're members of? Do you want certain other locations, SharePoint sites that they may have shared content with? So there are a variety
and some
of
those may
locations.
have different retention policies, right?
Well, for sure, that could be affected, like the data may not be there based on the retention policy. So you have to kind of
Right.
know the locations to search. And then there's, even within different types of locations, there may be different ways to search for it. Some things like date range are kind of universal across the environment, but other things may be only specific to one workload, as they call it. Where eDig 365 comes in is that if organizations have been told to put Joe Smith on hold, the outside counsel, for example, may want to know, well, which locations were put on hold, and were they successful, those holds, or were there errors? So
Right.
this validation of holds. Also searches. If we ran searches and we ran search iterations, what was the logical progression of those search iterations? How many results did we get each time? And which search did we ultimately export? And how much data was exported? this type of a defensibility layer. Both of these items that I just discussed are very, very difficult to extract from Microsoft 365, especially in a cross-matter way. One of the buzzwords of the RSA, which is a security conference, is one of the buzzwords this year was observability. And getting observability into what's happening is important for information security professionals. It also ends up being important for legal professionals. And that's where eDig 365 comes in. It provides an observability layer of what's actually happening and happened in the Microsoft Purview environment.
So, so first of all, in a practical sense, this made me think right away of one of the cases that, the monthly case law webinar that I do with Mary Mack and Judge Peck and Doug Austin.
Yeah.
We had a case 3 or 4 months ago where somebody said that they hadn't produced something because of that sort of a problem. It was clear in the discussions that were going on that the attorney just wasn't sure where the data existed and how long it had been retained and how to extract it and report on it. So exactly, observability. What a perfect phrase. So I take it then that you came up with a solution because you faced that same problem.
Right. You just hear about it. And Tom, one of the things I think that one of the benefits of living for a while is you understand that to be relevant in a fast changing world, you have to help people. You have to be able to help people and listen to the problems that they're having. And what we heard was that customers and organizations were having problems getting these type of metrics. And it wasn't easy. It was too hard. It was PowerShell. It was JSON files. It was very complicated. It was so hard that you wouldn't even ask IT for it because they didn't have time to give it to you. And so a lot of times there were these, frankly, blind spots that led to defensibility and compliance issues. And so we tried to turn that around and provide an out-of-the-box executive level reporting type of model where that serves both the legal folks, right from the GC to the eDiscovery analyst who's actually doing things, to the IT folks that are actually oftentimes running these activities for legal. So trying to serve both of these markets through observability of metrics.
And well, two things come to mind. First is who runs, if you're using eDig, who runs those reports? Is it easy enough for legal staff to run the report, to use it, or do they have to get the IT guys?
No, that's one of the nice things about it too. We operate in a funny space because Microsoft Purview eDiscovery is such an extraordinarily powerful position. Such an extraordinarily powerful permission that only a handful of positions in an organization get the access to use it. But a lot of times the attorney may not get access to it, for example, but they really need the information. They're ultimately on the hook is, are all of my holds really in place? Did IT really search the people that I told them to in the way that I told them to? And getting that, there's that word again, observability, without having the permissions is what we solve. And so you get this dashboard view of what has been done so that you have reports that you could provide to outside counsel, you could provide them to the general counsel, you could provide them to the court, providing information about, what exactly was done.
So easy enough for the litigators to run reports.
Yes, it's a dashboard that's just push a report. You want the legal hold report, you push it, you get it.
Right. How about on the technical side, installation and upkeep? I mean, do you have to get the IT guys involved to get it loaded and up and running?
Yeah, I love this question, Tom. Thanks for asking it. In the space that we operate in the enterprise space, there's almost always a security review. You need to get the application. Our application runs in the customer's environment. And unlike traditional SaaS software, we don't get the information doesn't cross the wire to us about which, who's on hold or what was searched. We don't get any of that information. So we're not handling the customer's data in that respect. The application sits within the customer's Azure tenant, and all of the data pertaining to the cases and the searches and the holds stays in the tenant. One more thing is that our application is read only. It's a reporter application. So we're not actually performing activities in the organization's tenant. So that's a little bit about our setup. To answer your question very directly, once we go through the security review process, and I think customers are going to like our story on that, and our work with SOC 2 certification and all that the installation is less than an hour.
Wow.
It's a hyper easy installation because and you hear about other applications that are in our space, and they're months or sometimes years to get rolled out. And this is just fundamentally different. And one more thing, Tom, it's on the Microsoft Marketplace. So anybody can go onto the Microsoft, that's how you buy it. You go to the Microsoft Marketplace, and if you search for eDiscovery, I think we're the first listing, and it's curious, you know who bills you for eDig 365? Microsoft. You'll get it as part of your Microsoft bill. They don't, it's actually not, you're not getting it through us, you're getting it through Microsoft.
You don't have to worry about setting up a whole customer sales and support department, right?
We certainly have a sales department, and we certainly have a support department, but we don't have to worry about the transaction. Customer 24/7 can go onto the Microsoft Marketplace and hit the Buy It Now button and get the package, the installation package, and get going.
And I think you just answered the last question I had, which was on-prem versus in the cloud. You said it's in the Azure tenant, so it's residing in the cloud, assuming that's what they're using is Azure. Is it restricted to Azure?
It is. Our application is restricted to customers running Microsoft 365. Every enterprise customer that runs 365 has their own Azure. They probably have multiple Azures.
Right.
And this gets installed in that Azure environment. And yes.
And not to get overly technical, what if there are other Azure environments within the company? What if the company's big enough that there's multiple environments?
They can install the application in that Azure environment. It just needs service principal permissions to do its work in the Microsoft 365 tenant.
Okay. So how's it going? When did you release it?
In November.
And how's it going?
It's going great. We're really happy with where we are. We've got public company installations, and we are and large organizations that are in the security review aspect of the process. So we've got customers, and we think that we've found something that customers really need, both in legal and in IT. So we're excited.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As I said earlier, this is something that I hear about from people. As you know, I don't work with very many large clients, but that doesn't mean I don't come across them and they don't ask these questions. Like, what do you know about? What do you hear about? How the heck do I do this? And certainly, again, in our monthly webinar on the EDRM, we get cases on a regular basis. I won't say every month, but certainly on a regular basis, we're seeing reported cases where extracting the proper information and proving that you had it on hold is a key part of a dispute that's going on. It may not be the exact spot that we're discussing in the case, but it's part of the discussion. It's
Right.
ongoing. Yeah.
That was, I think Kelly Puyer in 2025 year in review even had a reference in her kind of opening letter about how this is a key thing, is to be able to tell the courts how you did something and is important. And this application provides that information, that record keeping, if you will. It
Yeah.
also, it's important to note, Tom, that Microsoft does have audit logs, but kind of by default, those audit logs after a year will drop off and you'll kind of lose the audit log information. So having eDig 365, we end up capturing that information because a lot of times, frankly, a discovery dispute might not show up until 2 years after a collection or a preservation is initiated.
Exactly.
And so when you go back and the audit logs go on, that may hurt the defensibility story. So having
It certainly muddies the waters, if nothing else. It makes it more difficult. Yeah.
correct. And so this application it helps that, we believe, that it helps with the record keeping that lawyers and IT risk, IT audit professionals like.
Yeah, and you just said something that's really key, which is how to tell the court, how to report to the court. The court wants that in easy to understand language. The court does not want to hear about an IT guy coming in and said, I wrote this program with special grabs and hooks, and they don't want to hear that. They want somebody who can confidently come in and say, yeah, we have a program. Here's a printout from my dashboard report on what was gotten, what dates, who, when, how, it's all there. Courts really want that. They want something that's easy observability.
Right. And I think, ultimately, I think so do the attorneys, right? Like, so that they can answer those questions easily, not only to the courts, not only to the other side, but to themselves, so that they can say, was my request handled the way
I'm confident that what I needed to get done was done. Yeah. That's great. That's great. So I want to be mindful of your time here. Any other points about this that I didn't ask about or that you'd like to hit? I mean,
well, we can show the value proposition and the business use case in 10 minutes. So go to www.edig365.com, edig365.com. Sign up for a demo, and we'd love to show you about the application.
Well, I'm going to do that, and I'll certainly encourage everybody who looks at this to do it as well. That was edig365.com for a 10-minute demo.
10-minute demo.
I love it. All right. Well, Don, always a great pleasure to talk to you again. Am I going to see you anywhere down the road this year? I guess the next thing I would be going to would be ILTA. Maybe Relativity Fest. I don't know. That's too far in the future. I don't know what's going to happen by then.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be at the CLOC, the Corporate
yes.
Consortium. Tom, this is our first time we've ever exhibited in the 34 years I've run my company. I've never been an exhibitor anywhere. First time we're doing this at CLOC. Very excited.
And tell us where that is. Where Chicago. It's Vegas, right?
Chicago. It's usually in
Chicago.
Vegas, but Chicago this year in May. And also,
and when? I'm sorry, Don. What just what month?
Yeah, it's May 10th through 12th, I believe, is the dates.
Great.
It's immediately the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday after Mother's Day.
Okay. Great.
And then we're looking at other conferences because that's what you do when you have a software company, and that's where we are now.
Well, then that's great to know. Maybe I'll see you down there. I've never attended CLOC. I've always heard good things about it. Again, that's not the environment that that's not the sandbox I play in. But in Chicago, being in Chicago, that makes it attractive. I'm always looking for an excuse to go to Chicago because I love the city and I have a number of good friends there. So, but May 10th That's right after Jazz Fest. I may still be I may still be napping.
The next one is, Tom, maybe I could entice you to come up to Boston at the
Oh,
beginning of October for the Association of Corporate Counsel. That's the big
oh yeah.
conference for general counsel and in-house counsel. So
When's that? Did you say
that's
October?
October
That's all right. I'll look it up. Just
October 4th through 7th.
okay. Um, yeah, I'm looking for an excuse to go to Boston. My sister, of course, who lives up there, keeps harping on me, and my two daughters live up there. Um, and Seamus, my son, is always looking for an excuse to go up and see his sisters, and um, so that could be very enticing. It'll still be baseball season. Seamus has never been to Fenway Park. Um, and is looking forward to that. I used to go to ACC a lot back in the days when I first started in this business with Rich Robbins.
Yeah.
Richard Robbins was my mentor, and he did a lot of work with the ACC. We did a lot of work with the old MCI telecom, um, and I can remember going to the ACC with him in San Francisco once. Yeah, exciting show. I'll keep that in mind. That's a good thought. If I don't get the clock, Boston in October is always good.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. I'm excited to do the demo, and I'm sure we'll have some more questions for you after we get done. But in the meantime, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
Tom, thanks for all you're doing for the community.
You got it. Thanks. See you next time on the eDiscovery channel.